This is intended for a mature audience only. Bitches.
Welcome, my fellow deviants, to Raw and Uncut. I'm Randy, and I'm joined by today with
Meg.
Izzy.
And for those of you just joining in, these are three friends pushing the boundaries of social norms and bringing them to you through this podcast. Nothing really clean up from the holidays. Steve's not with us this time, so I don't know if Megan chased him away yet or not, but but he's not here. So today's safe word is going to be cheese. We're kind of running out of words, so we're just looking around the room and just kind of picking stuff here from now on.
White queso.
Right? All right, so today we're going to be discussing relationships. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the different types of relationships, and then we'll go in a little bit deeper as we go through these podcasts. But today we're going to keep it basic. We're going to be talking about the different types of relationships out there. And we know it goes without saying that social norms plays a big role in dictating what relationships are and how they're supposed to be. And, you know, there's the big push for everything must be monogamy, right? But you're starting to see this change now more and more in culture where monogamy might not be the answer for everybody. You know, and so where do we fall? You know, so with us here at the table, I can tell you there's a little bit of difference between all three of us here. And then, you know, what other types of relationships are out there? So it goes without saying, you know, we're not trying to knock the monogamous relationship here on this podcast because, I mean, there are those feelings and those desires of even some of us here that want that two-person monogamous relationship is where they ultimately want to end up at. But along the way, we've experimented in different types of relationships, and we want to, you know, be true to our listeners and let them know what our experiences were, and then, you know, get the feedback from them, you know, as we go along.
Yeah.
So, we're going to just jump right in head first and just start talking about the different types of relationships. And, you know, specifically, there's a ton of them out there, you know, and it goes without saying what we might define as an open relationship, we'll say, may be different for somebody else.
Yeah, it's house rules for
It really is. It is house rules, you know, because, again, like I said, what's open relationship for me might be different than what it is for you, Izzy, or you, Megan, you know. It's what works for that person and their partner. So we'll just kind of go around the table and we'll, you know, talk about, you know, the different types of relationships and how we feel about them and if we've had any experiences in them. So I guess we'll start with open relationships since we kind of already approached that subject. So what are your thoughts on an open relationship?
Me personally, I'm too jealous for it. Like, open relationships to me is you just get to sleep with anybody. You can be in a relationship with someone, like emotionally attached, but sexually attached, there's no attachment there. Like, you can just go with anybody, anywhere. You don't necessarily have to disclose that you're, you know, having sex with other people. That's what it feels like to me.
See, I don't know about that because I've actually been in an open relationship before where your love and devotion is to one single person.
Yes.
And then there is the ability to have other partners. And so, like, just for example, say in my experience, I was involved with this person and we were in two different places a lot because of our jobs. We were sometimes even countries apart for long periods of time. And we were in love with each other and devoted to each other in that manner. But there was the understanding that if something happens, it happens. Now, we weren't out, you know, actively seeking it.
Yeah, but you weren't telling him. Would you tell him essentially every time you had sex with someone else?
Yes.
Would you tell him?
So we had that agreement that if something happened, we would just be open and honest about it. Okay. Now, we wouldn't tell them the details.
Yeah, but I feel like you're at that point, you're stepping into the boundaries of ethical non-monogamy because you're setting rules, you're setting boundaries on, the terms and conditions of this relationship.
Yeah, well, back when this was going on, I'd never even heard of ethical non-monogamy. I think that's something more new.
It is a pretty new term, and if you look at a bunch of different articles, people will either put it under open or actually all of these different types, whether it be open or poly or monogamous, goes under
monogamous.
Yeah, forgive me, I'm a little stuffy here. All go under some form of ethical or non-ethical monogamy.
So there's actually a non-ethical monogamy.
There is.
So
yes.
Wouldn't that just be cheating then at that point?
With the end, yes, it would be but you have to understand that also plays into other fetishes and roles as well.
Yeah, I can see that.
It all has to start out with the conversation, and then putting yourself under one of these titles. I really can't stand that because a lot of these overlap in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
When you get
right, and that's why for me, and I mean, maybe it's just because I am older, but for me, it's like, why are we making the categories more specific
yep.
when they can't just be generalized like they've always been?
Yep.
And it's like, even if it's generalized, like, okay, open with boundaries or open with rules,
yep.
it's still an open relationship.
Yeah.
Now you're just calling it ethical non-monogamy.
Yep.
And it's almost like, okay, I'm not completely open because we have rules, so now we have to have our own category.
Right. So a lot of that did stem from other people looking for support groups or others in their same type of situation, which is why a lot of these things get named or studies are shown on this type versus this type. And if, they want to see what kind of statistics, well, if you have this kind of relationship, and they can't do that without naming it. So when it comes to an open relationship, ethical monogamy, the alphabet soup of different ones that there are out there.
So realistically, open relationships is just a generalized category, yes. Whereas ethical and non-ethical monogamy is the more
supposed
specific.
To be this
that makes sense.
Stamped. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like the umbrella effect. Oops.
So I guess technically, in today's terms, I would have been in an ethical. Monogamous. How do you say it? Monogamous. Monogamous relationship.
Yes.
So, okay, I get it. I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
Because like I said, at the time, we were sometimes countries apart.
Yeah.
And we didn't see each other for 6, 7, 8, 9 months at a time. And, it worked and everything like that. And yeah, there were times that, both of us actually did something. Now the agreement is that we'd be open and honest with each other. And if it happened, we would be honest about it, just say, hey, it did. We wouldn't get into details about what happened, who it was with, and stuff like that. And then two, there was always the rule that it couldn't be somebody that was like a close friend, because like when we were back together and stuff like that, if we were hanging out in the same, having a party or something, you don't want that person over your house.
Yep.
So you couldn't do, like, let's say you had a friends with benefits situation going on.
Well, that's a completely different story.
Because I'm imagining
I'm
that
talking
friend
about
there,
like
and then all of a sudden I'm in a relationship. You disconnect with them completely?
I'm talking about just like the open relationship right now. Like friends with benefits is a completely different story.
I'm just
Yeah, but I mean, they can absolutely intertwine too.
Yeah, they can, 100%. So, anybody else have anything on monogamy? Open?
Monogamy?
Yeah, or open relationships.
Open relationship? No. That was
so you're jealous.
Well. Yeah.
You're the jealous type.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about it. Like poly relationships and... Ooh.
He ain't even drinking yet, y'all. So
poly relationships. I'm curious about them because it's like, how does that dynamic work? Just out of curiosity. But knowing myself, yeah.
Well, I mean,
get jealous.
I mean, we might as well jump into poly at this point. I mean, he opened up the door. I mean, when it comes to a poly relationship, I've never been in a poly relationship. I know of poly relationships that work very well for people, but I mean, even correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, because you kind of know more about them than I do. Even in a poly relationship, there's still a basic, you're my go-to.
Yeah, we call them primaries or secondaries.
There we go.
Yep. So
I wanted to say basic bitch, but I knew that wasn't the answer.
No. So in most polys, they usually stem from one beginning couple or two beginning couples that come together to do to form a family, quote unquote, where one group, whether the orientation doesn't matter in this type of family, but one will still be considered the primary, where they would make the first decision, agree, don't agree, would come from the primary, and then the secondary, and depending on how many more.
So, like, for example, I mean, I guess like you said earlier, they kind of cross over with each other, the different types of relationships. But
wait, it doesn't necessarily have to be open, though.
Correct.
Poly?
Correct. That's what I was just getting ready to say. It's not necessarily an open relationship.
It does not have to be. Beginning ones will usually start that way. And then if both members end up having feelings for the additional ad, or sometimes you hear it called a triad, they will accept them into their family, and then they would both add into their.
I feel like that would be harder though. Two people to fall in, because two people have can have very different tastes.
Well, I can understand that, but I can tell you that from experience that there is, even when you are in a relationship and you are inviting a third person in, say for just a threesome, not necessarily relationship side of it, once you invite that third person in so many times, there does become that connection with the original two and that person. And so both parties tend to develop a connection with that person. And so I can see where that would be at that point. It's like, why, instead of just inviting you in whenever we feel like it, why not just be a part of it?
So situationship, that's what that sounds like. Let me just get on with it.
Well, no, I mean, if you remember, situationship is just we're together for this amount of time for this reason. We tend to see a lot of high schoolers in that situation.
Yeah.
We're only dating while we're in school, but over summer break, I'm doing whatever I want.
Yeah, there's an expiration.
There's an expiration to that relationship. And it's a known expiration.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, like, what if one is more interested like he's in this situation, or she's in this situation because he's interested in one particular person,
which happens.
That does happen, and that's that's a risk that you run by doing that. There is, speaking from experience, that
you did poly.
No, I've never done a poly relationship. No, but I have been in a relationship where we've invited thirds in, and then that third develops feelings for one or the other, and so that's when you and your partner have to have that conversation of, do we still allow it and invite them in and just approach the subject and say, hey, look, this can't happen outside of this, or do we cut ties completely?
So you guys were talking as if it was the potential of being a poly?
No.
Oh, just, do we keep playing around with this guy?
Do we keep inviting him in as a third?
Yeah. Okay.
And then just kind of nip the, I have feelings for you in the butt, and just approach it from that point? Or we just cut ties completely with the third and find a new one. So, but I can kind of see where, like, you start to build that poly relationship in that situation where it's like a couple, and then you bring a third in, and then they stay essentially.
Yep. I mean, there are opposites. You're always looking for that. What do you call them? Unicorns, or I don't know what the opposite of that is.
Of a unicorn?
Yeah. It just escaped me.
Honey badger?
No. It'll come to me later.
Llama.
A llama?
But there are
a donkey?
It is difficult for a poly family to start, is the hardest part, unless they already know an additional couple, only because when it comes to whether the couple is looking for a female or a male, it's a lot harder to find a female to come in to stay with a male and a female already.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Well, that probably goes back to basically kind of how Izzy is with being jealousy.
Yes, there could be that one. So,
are you really a female?
Stop.
So most of the time when you see them, they're
He is not.
Yeah,
just saying.
They're you find them in group chats or things looking for their.
So that kind of brings up the question, and again, I don't know. I know of a couple poly relationships, and I'm not like acquainted with them. I just know of them, and that brings up the question: is like, is poly relationships, are they more like one male, multiple females, or are they more evenly spread? Or
statistically, it is male. Ratio is much smaller to female. So yes, it's usually male and multiple females, or there's
sounds like a harem.
Yeah,
it kind of it is more difficult for men, especially two heterosexual men, to share in multiple females without crossing boundary lines.
They weak. I could share it.
Now there are other poly relationships out there where you will have two male starters. One is bisexual. One is fully gay, not interested in women at all. That will actually add in another female for his bisexual partner.
Hey.
And that is
there's a lot of wires crossing here.
It does. It seems like there is a lot of.
I think that's why a lot more people identify more with the poly family, because it has less restrictions.
I guess
you could have a poly family that you have a relationship couple that are sexually active, but then you also do have people out there that are asexual, or people that are still part of that family because the love, the emotion, the bond is there, but there's no sexual attraction, and that's okay too.
Right.
So you could have a poly family where or a triad, for an example, that there is one sexual partner and the other one is part of their family and dates outside, even though they're part of that poly family.
Okay.
Wow. I felt like I just got taken to school.
Sorry about that.
I mean, it sounds more and more like I should be in a poly relationship then.
So once they form, because the difficult part is making it happen, coming together.
Yeah.
Are they typically long-term situations, or?
I mean, I would assume that's the ultimate goal of it.
The ultimate goal. Mm-hmm.
So is that common among them? Poly relationships, would you say, or is that not very common?
I think it's becoming more known as common. I think it's been going on for a very long time, but
I can tell you the one couple or group, poly family that I do know is 2 guys and 4 girls.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
And
that's a party.
I've known them a few years now, and I got to know them through work, unfortunately, but I've known them for a few years now, and I mean, they seem to be functioning just fine.
Cool.
I question, how the hell they got 4 girls just by looking at the 2 guys, but
shoot, the girls rally together.
I mean, as long as
they all sleep in the same bed too.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of arms and legs.
The most important thing about any of these relationships is the communications and the barriers started from the beginning. If both parties can honestly and truly agree and not break those boundaries set in the beginning, then there's no reason.
And I think that comes back to the full circle of when you're getting into a relationship, you have to have that definition of what the relationship is, and what you're looking for and stuff like that, because again, I can be in love with you, and if I'm in a poly relationship, like, you are my person that I'm in love with, and but I can still have sex with this other person and not have any feelings for him.
Right.
You know?
That just raises a question now, too. Like, the whole sex dynamic. Do we always have to have sex with each other all together as a band?
No. There's usually some either type of schedule, or some people, I know it sounds horrible, but
You look at the calendar.
you look at
Izzy, it's your turn tonight.
Yeah.
I was just imagining running around the house naked, seeing who would catch me.
but like there's also certain rules. People are better at better things. You know, you might be better at well, cooking, because you're amazing at cooking. So let's just say cooking. So like your main responsibility in that family would be to make sure everybody's food requirements are met.
Oh,
And
so
then,
it's like a team.
Yeah, everybody has a different type of role. If we all tried to do the same thing, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the same thing when it comes to that kind of relationship. Like I fell in love with you
from the back.
and your food. I fell in love with you for your, charity, for whatever. So you take care of all the family stuff, and you take all of the food stuff, and I handle the bills.
That's right, Izzy. Get in that kitchen and make us some dinner.
Goodbye. Starve. Now you got crackers.
Right? So that's also part of relationships. That's going back to, the original this topic is, it's all a part of what we're missing from our own lives. We fill in with different people to make these relationships, to make us whole, right? And whether we call that open, poly, monogamous, friends with benefits.
Well, I think that's I don't even know that that's technically a relationship status at this point anymore,
I don't either. I think it's
I think to me...
feeder.
What is it?
I think it's a feeder.
Oh, a feeder. I thought you said theater.
No.
Feeder. What's feeder? Like filling in?
Like it's a pathway towards one of these.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you look like you go into a friends with benefits situation because you're scorned. Because you're,
Well, I mean,
bored.
For me, I just tend to lump friends with benefits in with hookups,
Yes.
And it's for, now, yeah, I might be hooking up with the same person over and over and over and over and over and over again, but
And you don't catch feelings?
No, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like Izzy's judging us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not judging. Because I had a friends with benefit situation. They ended up catching feelings. I was like, there is no.
And
it
you
was
stopped
just pure sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. It stopped after that. The friendship just crumbled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
But, I mean, that's what happens. But, that's, again, goes back to the whole, you have to have the, conversation about what the relationship is.
That's what I hate, though. Sometimes they're not. They think they're ready for it when they're not.
It's true.
They're like, yeah, I can keep my feelings out of this. And then it turns out, no.
And I think that's something that a lot of couples and relationships run into, in these situations, like for example, I'll just say from my experience where you invite a third person in and that third person's like, yeah, okay. They've never done it before, but they get to the point where they're like, yeah, I want to do it. Let's, I'm okay with it. And then they get to the actual point of doing it. And it's like, nah, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So.
And we're all allowed change to evolve.
Yeah.
We're gonna find that one person that's gonna be, our other half.
Mm-hmm.
We might not be able to share them. We might be able to share them, but and that's healthy. It's healthy to change. You might be open and have all these other relationship goals now, but that doesn't mean in 7 months, in 2 years, it's going to be exactly the same. You just got to keep checking in.
Right. And I think that's when it becomes important to make sure that you remember who your go-to person is. What'd you call them again? Primaries. Yes.
Yep.
I think that's important to remember, who your primary is then.
Yep.
Because, even in my situation where we were a couple and we invited thirds in, we still had that connection and we would have that conversation. If something wasn't going right in the middle of what we were doing, we would know, the look that we would give each other or something that we would say, and then we knew to cut it off at that point. And it was an understanding between the two of us that no matter how into it we were, if the other person was not, we stopped it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's setting that boundary, you know, setting that you know,
the tone.
Exactly. So, you know, having that definition of relationship, having that clear wants, desires, you know, your expectations and boundaries goes a long way in making sure that your relationships are successful, you know, and having that open forum communication between the couples or even just the consenting parties if you're not in a true and honest and open relationship. I'm getting a note here. I'm trying to read it, y'all. Hold on a second.
Break.
Oh, break.
I can read it from all over here, bro.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so we're back. Sorry about that. Just bear with us. Actually, a couple of us are going through the winter cold right now, so we're going to have to hopefully push through the rest of this without a second break. But we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I want to go around and just kind of talk about like long distance relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you guys see yourselves with a long distance relationship? Izzy, we'll go ahead.
Difficult hardship. I'm not saying I'm going to be completely opposed to long distance as long as there's an agreement in the very beginning that there's a goal to meeting up at some point. Like, if you start with no clear goal of like how this could turn out in the future coming together because jobs and all of that come into play, then it's kind of pointless. You're just talking from long distance and not really seeing each other physically, because that's a big component for me. Like
I think that, and I've done like the long distance relationship. Like I said, you know, there was a time period when the relationship that I was in, we were countries apart and we didn't see each other for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be quite honest, I think over time, yes, I agree with you. There was this like mutual like understanding that eventually once jobs aligned and stuff like that, we would be together in the same place. But I think having that long distance gave us the opportunity to grow stronger as a couple.
Let me be a snob for a second. What are you guys considering long distance?
Long distance for me is like they're in a different state.
Yeah, long
Like,
distance for me is like...
What's
you
your
know,
minimum for your long distance?
You mean like minimum like...
What you consider long distance? Are we talking like an hour?
Oh,
I'm
no.
thinking over 5 hours.
Over 5 hours?
Yeah, like something I'm going to have to plan to visit.
Yes.
Okay.
Like
I
get
need
on
to
a
sleep
plane.
over.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's long distance. Not
Now
like...
who's judging?
Yeah, sorry. I'm like an hour. I'm not driving more than an hour to go see you. I'm
Damn.
sorry. Not happening.
Damn, she's like, fuck you.
Nope.
Bye.
Nope.
Yeah, but do you actually drive to meet them? Because every time I've met and talked to you, you make them come to you.
Oh, I do, because they're less than an hour away.
Oh my God.
I had this one couple that wanted me to come in to join them, but they were like 2.5 hours away. I said, no, I'm not driving my ass 2.5 hours.
I respect that though. Cause
Yeah, I
Let's do
mean,
long
I could see
distance.
with a couple, but if
Well, it has
If I'm having
potential
a-
to be more.
if I'm having a conversation with somebody and we're getting to the point where it's like we're dating, I'll drive 2.5 hours to meet somebody. Shit, I'll drive 3 hours to meet somebody.
I mean, that relationship better be super established before
Yeah.
I make a commitment to be a long distance.
and I've had a situation where I was the one doing the traveling. Like
Only?
pretty
No.
much. I was a simp at this point. Like he did none of the traveling. And it wasn't worth it. Like I could have found someone
Shit.
closer.
Yeah.
It was a waste of time.
Yep.
I think my last relationship, I did most of the traveling.
Okay.
Just
I was
wanted
like-
to be clear, but yeah.
But that's because they didn't have a car, I think.
Ah,
But what was you made me lose track of what I was going to say. Long distance, anyway. I'm not completely against it as long as like
So what-
equal footing.
What
on
would
it.
be your maximum distance, though? Like, how far would you go? Would you do coast to coast?
Again, there has to be that at some point, like a time frame that we're actually going to be close together, not up in the air kind of situation. If that cannot be defined, then it doesn't matter how far away you are. I'm not going to engage in that. It's just going to be long distance.
But now, is this like, are you talking like, hey, we are going to meet up like 3 times a year? Or
no,
are you
I'm
talking like
about
at
like
the end game is?
The end game is because I did the whole like, you meet the person every so often. And the more you meet them, the more you want to see them. Like if it's going very well, but then it's kind of like torture. Because now you're away, or they'll be like, oh, I have my job, I can't travel, I can't do this, because, all sorts of stuff comes up. And it's like, okay, this is just not it. This is not working. It's stressful. It becomes more stressful for me over time, because I'm going to want the
So it sounds like to me,
connection
Izzy's
more.
in that type of person in the relationship that it's about me, 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 me.
Excuse me?
He gets jealous. He just said it's about me.
I'm the fucking overlord. I don't care.
So Izzy has to be the center of attention in the relationship.
And make me the primary. Yes.
There you go.
I know somebody will make you a primary.
Okay. One in the front, one in the back. It can work.
So, I mean, I think that all goes back to our
I'm killing her. No.
Sorry. Somebody's about to cough up. So I think that all goes back to our, where we were discussing about when do you have that defining the relationship moments, and for me, I'd rather have that conversation up front, because I don't want to get into a relationship with you, invest my time in you, and then we not have the same outlook on relationship, And I think that can even go further with like, especially, when you're thinking about children, so I don't want to get into a relationship, invest my time with you, and be like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And then you're like, nah, don't want to have kids.
But you don't do that right out the gate, though.
I
Like,
think
if it's friends with benefits, I can be like, up front, right out the gate, be like, this is what this is.
For me, I think that you don't have to necessarily have that, in-depth conversation, but it should be a topic that is approached.
As you're learning
out
the
gate.
person, getting vibe for them.
No, I'm like out the gate.
I want to marry and have 5 kids.
No, I don't mean like that, But you can always approach the subject out the gate when you're on a date with somebody about like that.
How do you feel about?
Not really say how do you feel about kids,
I've
but
got 10.
just be like, oh yeah, I spent time with my nephew the other day. I can't wait to have kids and see what they say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Kind of thing. You don't have to be like, so I want kids. How many do you want?
Yeah, and that's just learning the person. That's why I'm like, you can't really be right out the gate. You're still feeling for the person. You don't even know if it's going to be long term with the person yet.
No, I get that. But what I'm saying is I don't want the first time of the word, kids or topic of our relationship and where I want it to go to be like 10 dates in.
Yeah. You haven't even said, I love you. When does that come out?
That takes a long time for me to say.
How long?
I don't know. It depends on the person. It really does depend on the person.
What was the shortest, like?
Oh, I don't know.
Mentiras. You don't know the guy you said the quickest I love you?
No, I don't.
The people in the back, my fellow deviants.
I really don't know the shortest.
The shortest. The longest it took you then.
Ooh, the longest I would probably say has been probably a year or so.
A year?
Yeah.
You played with that man. How
In
about
the
you,
bedroom.
Meg? How long has it taken you?
The first time I said it, it was an accident.
Oops. I think we got to hear this story.
An accident.
It's something you think about. Do I love this person? Is this what it's, your first time you actually say it?
Yeah.
Is this what it's supposed to feel like? And then, you talk to the parentals and they're all like, oh, it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen, blah, blah, blah. And it was, we were prepping for a hurricane and everybody was frantic. And, he had to go with his group and I had to go with my group, and we met in the middle to say, be careful, and we'll figure it out when we get back. And just as we left, it just came out, and I turned and I felt my face get red, and I kept walking. So I have no idea if he heard me or not.
I had somebody once tell me in bed while we were having sex, and it was like maybe like the third or fourth time. Right,
that's too soon.
Yeah. And then they were like, I think I love you. And I was like, time to put your clothes on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Time to go, because I sure as hell don't love you.
Yeah. I believe it needs to be. Eventually, we spent years together after that, but I think it just kind of happened because at that point it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just wait until that happens.
Man. How about the new one? Have you told him yet?
Ooh. It smells like guess.
Oh, I heard. Just so y'all know, her face turned red.
I do have fruit punch over here. It could be my Kool-Aid that I'm sipping on. No, I have not said that.
Has he?
No.
Oh. That surprised me, actually. I think he would be the one to say it first.
Well, listeners, I guess you'll be the first to find out.
So we've talked a little bit about relationships. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we were just kind of keeping it general and stuff like that. So in your opinion, what type of relationship person do you think you are? Who wants to go first?
Like,
are you the type that's going to be like, I want monogamy, that's the only thing I want? Are you okay with open relationships?
Well, I'm okay with friends with benefits. I think I can do those as long as the person is able to keep the feelings out of it. Because once the feelings come in, it's like, I don't have those feelings. It just complicates everything. But once I get into a person, I steer towards more monogamy because I get tunnel vision with the person. So it's easier for me to do monogamy. And the whole poly thing, it's curious, like it's curiosity that kind of, makes me look over there like, oh, look at him. He got 2 dicks. Like, how does that work? How does the dynamic work? Like, and the way you made it sound like it's easier almost. Like you got that team, that backup. But my personality, I don't know. Maybe there's a third person that can balance me out.
I don't know about that because we've all heard you're jealous type.
Yeah. But I am imagining
I don't think you
two guys that I'm really into just on me like.
Yeah, well, but that's different. But what I'm getting at is here, okay, you can imagine that, right? Mm-hmm. But now imagine a true poly relationship should be, it can do whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine them two in the bedroom while you're being left alone in the living room.
Oh, I'm jumping in that bedroom.
Exactly. Even if they don't want you in there at the time.
Fuck y'all mean.
So
I mean, they could if I'm out the house or something, but like.
But that's just it. A true poly relationship it's whenever,
with whichever.
With.
Ooh.
Yeah. See,
I'm gonna feel so left out.
Mr. Green jealousy over here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. We need a new category.
There you go.
Izzy's gonna make his own category.
There we go.
What about you, Megan? What kind of person do you think you are?
So, growing up, I would say monogamy, 100%. Now, I kind of poly is a little harder for me.
She's choosing her words wisely.
I am. Because I cannot share.
Oh, so you're jealous too.
Welcome to the club.
I don't know that I don't think it's jealousy. Mm-hmm.
You just want what's yours.
Yes.
That's jealousy.
Girl, I understand.
She was the kid in the sandbox. That's my toy. You can look but not touch.
No,
honey.
I think there is a separation though.
It's not. I mean, if that's what they wanted to do, and there was no emotional connection, if I was there, I don't know that I would care. Mm-hmm. But I could not share that emotional connection with anybody else.
Well, I think, I think that becomes part where you have your primary.
Yes.
Like, if I was in a poly relationship, I don't think I could have an emotional relationship with the others. Like, yes, I'm attracted to you and stuff like that. But when it comes right down to it, I'm in love with this person.
See, I always saw myself in a poly relationship with at least one sexual partner, my primary. But my secondary would be mine, but not necessarily only my sexual partner.
I think I'm going to need a spaghetti string diagram.
So, in an example, me and that individual, we would have our primary relationship, be a couple.
Okay.
But then we would also have another individual that would entertain in our family, be part of our family, but wouldn't necessarily need to be only ours. This is so hard to explain.
That third person is open to go out and
whatever
do what they want. Okay, and you two are just a couple. But he's invited in.
I'm like getting these like hippie commune vibes.
But it wouldn't.
Let me get the flowers ready.
It wouldn't necessarily need to be a sexual relationship between all of us. I need more of an emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. Hence the hippie commune.
Maybe. But I would have a primary partner that would be able to fulfill my needs sexually.
Okay.
My other partner would be there for me more emotionally than necessarily the first part.
Maybe I am in a poly relationship.
Would be able to handle.
Inside joke. Okay. Oh man. So
I was accused of being in a poly relationship with you.
With me?
Yes, with you. So, and I'm sure you can put that spaghetti string together.
The emotional and the physical.
I'm your emotional contact.
There's the emotional person that you can connect emotionally, but then there's the one that can dig you down.
Yeah.
The physical.
Yeah, I don't dick you down.
That makes sense. I get it.
So maybe I am in a poly relationship. I didn't know it, y'all. Y'all heard it first. Damn, I got shorted on Christmas gifts. So, well.
Excuse me.
I mean, I can kind of see that. I don't know that that's necessarily poly, though, is it?
No. It all is about the family that defines it.
True.
Which goes back to all of these different types of relationships.
Right. So when are we putting the door between our houses?
God, we've been talking about that for years.
That's cute.
Well, I mean, now that I'm in a poly relationship, it kind of changes how I feel. No. I mean, ultimately, I want that monogamous relationship. I mean, I want that person. I have been in that situation, though, where I have that person that I'm in the relationship with, and yeah, we're still open and we can sleep with other people, you know, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, I want that connection. Mm-hmm. You know, I want that person. I want that person that I can come home to every day, you know, go to bed with, stuff like that. You know, I feel like that I found my soulmate in life. I don't necessarily know that that's still the case, but we'll see. So, you know, in those days of doing this and that, we'll have to see where it goes. So I could do a open relationship. I mean, for me, even an open relationship, though, would have to have some boundaries and rules. Mm-hmm. You know, if I'm going to be again, I mean, it might be an open relationship for me, but I'm going to have my primary, essentially. Mm-hmm. You know, the same person that I go to, my friends with benefits, that's what you want to call it. And then I'll sprinkle in a little others here and there.
Yeah. Some diversity.
Just put a dash of here and a dash there, you know. Give me some spice in my life, you know. Because we all know I don't like white guys. Mm-hmm. So, but, you know, whatever we do in our relationships is up to us. Right. You know, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So that about wraps up our episode of Raw and Uncut, my fellow deviants. If you want to know more about our show or reach out to our hosts, you can head over to our website. It's attached in the show notes along with our Facebook page. Don't be shy to reach out to us. We do read our comments and we do get back to you. And we're going to be having an episode coming up shortly where we'll do a live questions and answers episode with our listeners, our deviants out there. So be sure to share and follow us on your favorite platforms. But before we go, don't let anyone tell you that you're wrong for pushing the boundaries of social norms and relationships. What you want in a relationship is your choice, nobody else's. Live your best life in the most exciting way that you choose. And as always, choose your safe word wisely.
Or have two dicks.